So with the Masters 8 tournament coming soon, I want to give you all my thoughts on everything we know so far, as well as my predictions for what's to come in regards to the characters and the gimmicks they'll use, the potential matchups we could see and why, as well as how each battle will go. With that being said, let's start off with the characters. I briefly gave my thoughts on them in my episode 108 review. I think they're all great picks. I thought Paul would have made the list since we saw him in the opening and in the trailer, but it looks like that's not the case, and instead he'll come back in a training episode next month, which should be pretty good. When it comes to all of the trainers and their battle gimmicks, I think one of the biggest draws and highlights of the Pokemon World Championships is the fact that we can see different battle gimmicks used in each battle. When it comes to what I think everyone will use, we're likely to see Ash use every gimmick in the World Championships, that being one in each round, unless he's forced to use one twice. And chances are he'll be the only one to use Z-moves, since that's exclusive to Alola. Although I do think it's possible that we'll see Cynthia use them too, since she does have a connection to Alola with her being in the Sun and Moon games. Plus we saw her use a Komao in episode 69 who has an exclusive Z move, but if we go by the promotional poster, it's likely that she'll be using Garchomp with whatever gimmick she uses, and if I had to choose, I'd rather see her with a Mega Garchomp over Dynamaxing or Z moves of any kind. When it comes to everyone else, we've seen most of them use battle gimmicks. Leon has Gigantamaxing, Steven, Diantha, and Alain use Mega Evolution, and we've seen Lance use Dynamaxing as well when he battled Leon. Lance does have a Mega Charizard that he uses in Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, but I don't see him using it since we already have two Charizards in the tournament with Alain and Leon, who are already going to use Mega Evolution and Gigantamaxing. I do think it would be cool if we saw Lance use a Mega Gyarados since that's his poster Pokemon, but with three trainers who are already guaranteed to use Mega Evolution plus Ash who can use everything, we're likely to just get Gigantamax Gyarados, so that we'll have a variety of gimmicks used. The last person I want to talk about is Iris, who I think will be using Gigantamaxing or a Z move, since she has no Pokemon that can Mega Evolve in any canon, and I would lean more towards Gigantamaxing, which is something I'll talk about in its own separate video. Now let's talk about some of the potential matchups, from what I think is interesting to what I think is most likely. We don't know if this is a regular tournament or one where everyone has to fight each other, but based on the history of tournaments in the anime, this will likely just be a regular bracket tournament where you need 3 wins to become the champion. So starting with Ash in the first round, the matchup I want to see him have the most is against Alain. I've talked about this in other videos, but Ash versus Alain is the one rematch I want to see more than anything else. Ash getting his rematch before advancing and fighting another champion would be great, especially since it would be against someone he's never beaten. And if this rematch is to happen, Greninja definitely needs to take part in it and battle Charizard with its Ash Greninja form, which could be why they didn't show it in episode 108 if they're saving its reveal for when it actually happens, like with Serena. I know this would mean Ash would have to fight 2 Charizards in the tournament if he made it to the finals, but this is a rematch that definitely needs to happen, especially since they brung back Alain and this is supposed to be Ash's ultimate challenge. The only other battle that I think would be interesting for Ash in the first round would be Ash versus Lance in a battle to decide who's the best trainer of Kanto. And if Ash wins, he gets to represent Alola as its champion while also being a trainer from Kanto who beat its champion. This would also check off another dragon type trainer on Ash's list, since he's already beaten Iris who's a champion, Drasna who's an elite 4 member, and Raihan who's a gym leader. But because of that, I also don't want to see this matchup since Ash has already clearly proven that he can beat a dragon type trainer on every level. I don't think anyone else would make an interesting matchup for Ash in the first round aside from those two. So now let's talk about Iris, who's ranked 7th. There are only 2 people I really want to see Iris battle in the first round, and that's Lance, since it would be a battle of dragon type champions, and if Iris wins, that would give her her first win in the series since she lost in her debut episode, and it would elevate her status as a dragon type champion. Another great potential matchup is Iris versus Cynthia, since they have not only met but also battled before, back when Iris was still learning how to control Dragonite, so having them face off now with Iris, who is now a champion and a dragon master in training, would show great development on her part. And even if Iris loses, I wouldn't be upset if it was to Cynthia. So now let's talk about the 6th strength trainer Alain, who could have 3 great potential matchups. The first of course being against Ash, like I talked about earlier, the next being against Diantha, who's the champion of Kalos, so that would make this somewhat a title battle for the best trainer in Kalos, similar to the Ash versus Lance situation. The last great potential battle with Alain is him versus Steven Stone, who can use Mega Evolution as well, and this would be a rematch of when they fought during the Mega Evolution special. It would also be a good way of seeing how far Alain has come since that battle. Now for the 5th ranked trainer Diantha, as I talked about before, Alain would obviously be a good matchup, but the next best option would be Cynthia in a battle to decide who's the strongest of the female champions. I would include Iris in that list, but with Diantha having a Mega Gardevoir, it would be almost impossible for Iris to win. That being said, if Diantha faces anyone but Iris in the first round, I don't really see her getting out since she's the least strongest of all the champions in the games. So that brings me to the 4th ranked trainer Lance, and like I said earlier, I think Ash or Iris would be the best option for him to battle, but either way I see him losing early if he goes against either one of them. Moving on to number 3, we have Steven Stone, and I think him battling Alain would be the best option to me by far. The only other option that I think would be interesting is him versus Diantha in a Mega Evolution battle. So that brings me to my top 2, starting with Cynthia, and there are several battles that I want Cynthia to have in this tournament, but she can't have them all, so I'll just stick to the first round for now. And like I said earlier, her versus Diantha would be cool, or possibly Iris in a Student Master face-off. I have Cynthia winning against anyone in the first round aside from Ash, who has the plot armor to survive it, and Leon, who they can't just eliminate in the first round. Leon is in reality the only person with 100% plot armor for the first round, even better than Ash's, since there's no way they hyped him up as the undefeated, unbeatable champion for the entire series just to have him lose in the first round. It's really that simple, so it doesn't matter who Leon faces in the first round, he'll be winning regardless, so it doesn't matter what his matchup even is. With that being said, my winner for who will win the first round and make it to the final 4 are Leon, Ash, Cynthia, and Iris. I think the only people stopping them in this tournament will be each other, or Alain, who could potentially beat Iris if they faced up in the first round, but I don't see that happening at all. And going with this final 4, there are a few great potential matchups that could happen, the first being Leon versus Cynthia in a battle of the strongest champions, which is something I'm sure many people want to see, making the second battle Ash versus Iris in another companion showdown. And I think those battles would be great because of the action and the story aspect, but I don't see them happening, but I wouldn't complain if it did. Cynthia versus Iris would also be great for the reasons I spoke about earlier, but this would also mean Ash versus Leon in the semifinals, which I think has a 0% chance of happening. So I think the ideal matchup with this final 4 is Ash versus Cynthia and Leon versus Iris. Leon will obviously win and make it to the finals. Ash versus Cynthia will definitely be interesting, since if she beat him it wouldn't be shocking at all, since she and Leon are regarded as the strongest champions in the games and are literally the strongest champions in the anime, but it would be very disappointing if Ash lost without ever battling Leon in an official battle. If the semifinals turn out to be a 6v6 instead of a 3-on-3, I don't see Ash winning against Cynthia at all unless he brings back his old Pokemon. But since that doesn't look like it'll be the case, I'll go with Ash winning a 3v3 against Cynthia and making the finals and meeting Leon in a World Championship title battle. Ash versus Leon is something I plan on talking about in its own separate video because of everything it'll mean from Ash's legacy to the end of his journey and what it could possibly mean for the Gen 9 anime and Ash's future. So be sure to be on the lookout for that video in the coming weeks. With that being said, let me know what you think is the most interesting matchup that I suggested and what's one that you would like to see in the tournament. Be sure to let me know in the comment section below and subscribe for more Pokemon anime content. With that being said, thanks for watching and bye.